All right, everybody, we are back on Skywatchers Radio live on the Dark Matter Radio Network and, of course, PSN Radio with our guest this evening, none other than Mr. Travis Walton himself. Travis, thank you so much for being here tonight and spending some time with us on the show. Thank you, sir.
All right.
It's always fun to have you on and talk to you. And it's been a while since I've actually gotten to speak to you. You know, how's your life treating you in the last couple of years, Travis? You've been busy.
Oh yeah, been busy. It's just it keeps getting busier all the time. It's kind of strange, you know.
You figured, you know, stuff would slow down after a certain period of time, but you seem to get more and more busy as the years get by, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, even the movie it plays more often on various cable channels than it did before.
That's amazing, isn't it? It is kind of having like a resurgence in popularity. I've noticed a lot of people have been talking about it more and stuff. Like we were saying earlier in the show, I don't know if you caught the earlier part of the show, but it was a good movie. You know, minus the flaws that that they changed from the book. It is a very entertaining movie, and it is a kind of a good introduction for people to get to know your story.
Yeah, it did kind of open up people's willingness to look at the facts, and you know. It does capture the basic, emotion the way I interpreted it at the time. But, you know, over the years, I've come to reanalyze all these events and look at it a lot differently than I used to.
It's amazing, how time would change your views on certain things, especially like the incident itself. Because I'm pretty sure, when we spoke last time, you made a point to say that you would never want this to happen to you again. But recently, you've kind of come around, and you want closure. You want to maybe know some answers. I heard.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that just analyzing all the different circumstances, things that point in the direction of what their idea, that, of course, the thing that, was heavy on my mind for, so many years was why? What was the purpose here? And, a lot of things just weren't fitting as far as it being any kind of a situation that was totally indifferent to my welfare. I've come to look at it as possibly much more benevolently motivated than I ever thought before.
Yeah, benevolent, but hang on. Are you saying it was benevolent, but yet still traumatizing?
Oh yeah, because when I regained consciousness, I was in such pain, and the claustrophobia in such a cramped space was what amplified that was the feeling of suffocation. I just couldn't seem to get enough oxygen. Now, whether that was due to some kind of injury to my lungs, that because of the energy beam that had hit me, or whether the atmosphere in there wasn't correct for humans, whatever the circumstance, the feeling of suffocation will cause a feeling of panic that you just can't overcome.
It's true. Yeah.
Devastating, is what I would call it.
Well, and also you got to put yourself in the position that Travis was in. I mean, when you wake up and you're in a strange place, you see these strange beings coming at you. I mean, not for nothing. It's not nothing to be ashamed of. But I mean, any human being would go into like a panic attack mode, and when they see something like that, it's not your average everyday thing.
Question I don't know. Nowadays, with all the information and all the stuff that's on TV and on the internet, do you think that people would be more, I don't want to use the word relaxed, but more blasé about it? It's like, okay, I'm on a ship, don't panic, don't freak out, just don't, probe me and just drop me off where you found me.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of people think they would remain calm, but that feeling of suffocation is something that you're not, no matter how mentally prepared you think you are, it's something that you're not going to overcome. And I give the example of waterboarding, that, it is so effective as an interrogation tool, even though the enemy is totally familiar with the technique, and they even train for it. Heck, our people train for it, knowing that it's not going to kill them. But it still works, because that feeling of suffocation is just operates on an instinctive level.
All right, that's a fair answer.
Yeah. Now, there's a question that somebody wanted to ask you, and they begged me to ask you this question. They wanted to know if you ever have given any thought to the possibility that maybe the aliens or the people, the beings that took you to the Dulce underground base, which was not that far away from where the incident happened. Did that ever cross your mind at all?
Well, I haven't, connected it specifically with Dulce, but yeah, I did speculate that it could have been underground or underwater somewhere, rather than being off on some distant celestial body or even some bigger ship somewhere. It could have been underground, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. They show in the movie scenes where D.B. Sweeney was weightless. Did you actually experience that portion?
No, that was
so they stretched it a little. Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Just a little bit of fiction.
Fact, the feeling of weakness might not have been just because of the
not weakness, weightlessness.
It might have been heavier gravity rather than weightlessness.
Right. Well, I mean, if they're so advanced that they can come here from another galaxy or wherever, I mean, I'm pretty sure they figured out how to have, the whole, dynamics of gravity on the ship,
Yeah.
I mean, they would have figured that out a long time ago, anti-gravity and all that stuff. So, I mean, you probably felt their atmosphere inside the ship, and it was just too much for you to breathe in, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
Yeah. Now, were there any reports, Travis? 'Cause I've always wanted to ask you this. That you were aware of. Were there any reports in Snowflake or in that area pre to your abduction? That people had sightings. Was there like a rush of people coming forward with sightings, or was there a lot of talk or buzz about sightings in the area?
Well, there were some cattle mutilations in the media, in the local paper, in the months prior to it, and that kind of stimulated a little conversation at work. But other than that, getting access to the sheriff's file on the case, they received quite a few reports from hunters and campers who were in the area at the time and described seeing craft just like we saw. So, it could have been the very same craft.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, tell us a little bit about the Skyfire Summit event coming up, which, by the way, it's right next month. We're only a few days from this thing. It starts on November 7th, runs through the 9th, correct?
Yeah, and we've got a lot of the top speakers in the field. What I wanted to do with this, after somebody finally talked me into doing it, was to have something that really speaks to the local and regional communities. That is kind of a foundation course, a ufology 101. And so, the speakers that I chose and the topics I asked them to speak on is towards that end, that people can understand the evidence and the scientific principles that support the reality of this is happening.
And you got some great speakers to this thing. It's committed already. Kathleen Martin's going to be there. Linda Moulton Howe's going to be there. The great Stanton Friedman's going to be there. It's a great lineup. Richard Dolan is going to be there also. Chris O'Brien. I mean, a huge amount of people that are very famous.
Yeah, and I've got 3 Native American speakers, and that's important because we're surrounded by various reservations here: the Apache, the Navajo, the Hopi, the Zuni, the Pueblos. It's there. I spoke in Gallup here a couple of years ago, and I had almost 1,000 people in the audience, almost all Native American, and it was really fascinating to learn about things that are going on in the farther reaches of the reservation that normally don't make it out to.
Did any of them have a similar experience to you?
Oh well, there's all kinds of sightings and involvement, and this one guy was telling me about how his grandmother had a rug that was woven, and it was depicting a scene in which a meeting with these beings. And wouldn't that be something to
Tell me there's a photo of that rug somewhere.
I would love to see it.
I'm pretty sure that'll end up on openminds.tv.
Well, on the 25th, they're having a UFO film festival in Gallup again, and I'm going to go over there. And if I run into that guy again, I know I'll probably meet with a stone wall, but I'm going to try.
Now you're going to be on. There's going to be an Open Minds event in February. You're going to be there also, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. And I got a lot of different things coming up. The Contact in the Desert thing is. I've been invited back there. And
you're busy, man. Now we were talking about earlier on the show before we got you on about the film itself, and Alan here had a great question. Who owns the actual film rights to Fire in the Sky? Would you own them, or is there a company that owns them currently?
Did it revert back to you? Can you actually do another interpretation?
Their sequel rights expired after 4 years, so I own all the rights.
Well, yeah, I didn't see a sequel coming out of that movie.
Is it time to actually redo this movie and have it from your perspective?
I have been in discussion with some major filmmakers, and when the time is right, it's going to happen because Hollywood loves a remake, and the public really wants it. I've collected hundreds of emails from people that would like to see a more accurate remake, and I would like to see something that reflects my increased understanding of what happened there.
Now, who would you get to play you though this time around? Because obviously D.B. Sweeney won't be able to play much older actor now.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's up to them. But somebody was trying to suggest that my son ought to play me.
Hey, that's a good idea.
But he's a dead ringer for D.B. Sweeney, not for me.
That'd be kind of ironic.
He came with me to conferences, and people were saying, "Oh, you brought D.B. Sweeney with you." I go, "What?"
Well, there you go. He was born to play you, Travis, in the movie. He was born for it.
Yeah, D.B. Sweeney now looks like Renee Zellweger does now.
Wow, that's just mean.
Have you seen what she looks like now?
Yeah, no, it's true, but it's just mean. You don't say that on air, man. It's not cool.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, you could always send hate mail to my email address at the station here.
It's coming. It's coming.
He's going to get a lot of hate mail for that one. D.B. Sweeney's a cool actor, man.
No, I didn't say he wasn't a cool actor.
He really does kind of look like her. Just saying.
I just don't think he aged well.
I'll be joining DB on the autograph circuit. He's been getting a lot of requests, probably more than any other movie he's been in, for Fire in the Sky memorabilia. So,
I mean, that's kind of like the movie he's really remembered for the most. I mean, he's been in a few good movies, but I mean, when I think D.B. Sweeney, I think Fire in the Sky. See, Robert Patrick, who was in the movie also, he's known obviously for The Terminator.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the one he's known for, but I mean D.B. Sweeney definitely is known for Travis Walton, and let's talk about the people that were on the they were there when you were abducted that night. One in particular who has come forward a lot recently. Steve Pierce is I'm sure somebody you've talked to in some of these circuses with, and you've gone on some of these conventions with, and you've done lectures with recently. What are your thoughts of some of the stuff that he's coming forward with in the last couple of years?
Well, when he first came out, he was great. Everybody liked him. He's got a great personality and everything. But it was a big step forward for him because he had hidden out from this for 30 years and didn't want to do any talking on it. So it was very therapeutic for him to finally come out and be validated in that way. And as a matter of fact, the positive reception he got went to his head. I'm the one that broke trail. I mean, it was a lot rougher back in the early days, but so he came to a ready-made, very warm reception, and he became so intoxicated with the attention that he started getting kind of negative, like he was really jealous of me, and I was kind of surprised at some of the things he was saying,
Now, do you believe a lot of the stuff he's coming out with, that the supposed abductions he's been a part of?
No, I mean, I've never
I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Commented on anybody's experience,
Yeah.
unless I investigate them. But it just doesn't.
Doesn't add up.
No comment.
It's a tough one. I know. I understand it. That's a tough one.
There's no politics whatsoever in ufology at all.
No, but there's a relationship there, Alan, and I can understand that. They were friends for a long time, so that's a tough one. But I've spoken to Steve Travis, and I've had him on the show, and yeah, he does come off as a very nice person. But when he starts going into some of the supposed abduction scenarios and paranormal stuff that's happened to him, some of it is just a little weird to connect. He's had way too many different type of experiences. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
it's a little tough.
He's got a difficult life. There's a lot of things going on in his life. He's not really managing his love life all that well. Every time I turn around, he's being kicked out by another girlfriend.
But he keeps on getting girlfriends, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
That's true. So you got to look at the bright side. You got to look at the bright side of everything.
Well, that's part of the reason he gets kicked out, is because he's looking for the next one while he's still with the one.
I used to have that philosophy myself. I always want to find Miss Right, but I always end up with a bunch of Miss Right Nows.
Yeah, well, trolling the internet and, being found out.
No, never use the internet. That's some scary stuff you find there.
Ooh. Yeah, you don't want to do that, no. That can never end well, especially when you are known for ufology-based stuff.
Yep.
Just think about
you get that one psychotic fan, and you're in trouble.
Yep. Yeah. Speaking of which, I mean, I'm pretty sure you get some crazy fans approach you, Travis. I mean, has it gotten more to the point where you're recognized more and more now these days than you were back then? I mean, do you go anywhere and people just automatically recognize you and go up to you for autographs and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, that happens occasionally.
Does it really? Is that a little bit weird? Because I mean, you're a celebrity, but you really, you're not an actor or a movie star.
Well, I'm not anybody that seeks attention. As a matter of fact, I've been kind of unfair to some of the people that have recognized me, because I'll say something like, yeah, people are always telling me I look like that guy. And then they go off, and then they find out later it really was me, and I shouldn't.
Say, hey, aren't you the guy? Nope, I'm his other brother.
Yeah, I wasn't in Snowflake, Arizona when that happened. No way. No, I was in New York. That wasn't me. But you look just like that guy. That must be weird for some people who might not, believe, but maybe they see you and when they interact with you. Have you had people that were skeptical at first and then they talk to you for a little bit and then they completely just change their opinion on you just for
talking to you?
In
almost every case. If an interviewer comes around and talks to me, and they wind up being much more believing when they leave than when they came. They have all kinds of assumptions that.
What's the worst predisposed opinion someone has had of you before they met you? That you've changed, obviously.
Well, that I'm a liar, or that I'm crazy, or or some of both. Those are the kinds of preconceptions I'm talking about.
Okay, so it's not that bad then.
No. Now, how many lie detectors have you passed over the years? Because I know that it's been more than half a dozen at least, right? More than that.
I've passed 5 different tests from 3 different examiners, and all of them top-notch examiners, all of them with many years of law enforcement experience. I mean, there are some people who, do lie detectors, but, they're more... less well trained than the ones I took tests.
That's a gentle way of putting it.
Yeah. I always find it funny when skeptics try to debunk Travis's case, and they're like, "Oh, well, he must have been lying," and then you bring up the whole fact that he's passed all these lie detector tests, and they're like, "Well, that's not admissible in court." Oh, well, that's funny. It's not admissible in court when it proves
or it
shows that he's.
Myth. It
I know.
Is admissible in court in many states. And
Yep.
the last 2 polygraph tests that I took, I deliberately went to a state where it was admissible in court because I wanted the highest, most rigorous test I could get. And, you know, if 6 people testified that they had witnessed a murder, you know, that's open and shut. That guy's going to the chair. But if 6 people testify that they witnessed a UFO abduction, then all of a sudden we got a quibble. And that's without lie detectors.
Yep.
You know, and then you got 6 people passing lie detector tests, and that's not enough for these people. I would say that the bar is either too low for the death penalty or too high for UFO sightings.
Choices, choices, choices. I say we flip them around.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is too high for UFO abductees. And here's another question for you, Travis. You know, disclosure, you know, what you guys are doing is kind of a form of disclosure, doing the conferences and talking about your experiences. You know, Edgar Mitchell coming forward, that's a form of disclosure in a sense. You know, what Stephen Bassett does every year with his movement, which is something that we support greatly here on Skywatchers Radio. That's a form of trying to get disclosure out there. But disclosure from the government itself, it seems like it's so far away that to the point that I don't think it's ever going to happen, unfortunately. You know, what are your thoughts on that now as you've gotten older and you've lived with this for so long? Do you think that there's going to be disclosure anytime soon? Do you think you and I would live to see disclosure?
Well, I support Stephen Bassett's efforts, and I think that in spite of the fact that, you know, that I kind of agree with you that the government's not going to say, okay, we've been lying to you all these years.
Right.
Now we're going to fess up. They're never going to do that because that would be suicide for them. But, you know, nevertheless, what the Disclosure Project is doing is really it gives a sort of a format to bring out the evidence in favor of these things, these kind of hearings and this kind of press conferences. It really does have a positive effect. Now, as far as actual disclosure, not voluntary from the government just because it's of popular demand.
What do you think of other governments?
There's a lot of things popular demand that the government's never going to give.
Well, that's true too, yeah. But what do you think of other governments still coming forward with what they know and, you know, talking about it a little bit more freely than the U.S. government?
Yeah, they do, you know, in other countries. So, you know, it's kind of harder for our government to maintain that position in the presence of these other countries coming out with it. But I think that if there ever is disclosure, it'll come one of 2 ways. Either some undeniable incident, you know, of landing or a crash site in the middle of a populated area, something where they just can't cover it up anymore.
Right.
They can't say that's a weather balloon. Or some whistleblower, some Snowden type guy gets a hold of the files and goes public with it.
I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, but you know what? Even if something like that happened, there will be somebody immediately, I think, trying to cover it up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
and that can be pretty elaborate, the lengths that they go to cover things up.
I mean, I think, and honestly, I've talked about this with Bill Burns before, Travis, and you know, he's big on the whole JFK assassination, and I think part of what happened with JFK and why he was assassinated was because he found out some of the truth that the government knows about UFOs and other conspiracy stuff, and he was going to come forward and talk about this stuff, and he was going to air a lot of this stuff out because he didn't believe in secrecy. I mean, there's that famous speech that he gave about secrecy. And I think this is part of the reason why he was killed. And there you go. This is the man who held the highest position in the land, the president. And even he was killed to be silenced. So what the rest of us, what can we do?
There's no limit. So
yeah, there's none whatsoever. Now, are you a believer like in the NWO, New World Order, Illuminati? Do you think that plays a part in this whole thing, this conspiracy with UFOs?
Well, certainly that there is forces and organizations and, you know, primarily economic, that are more powerful than elected officials.
Elected officials only have a short term. Some of these people are for life doing what they're doing.
That's true. Like the Bush family. to name a few.
I'm waiting for Jeb Bush to run for president. Watch.
That's going to happen. And there's another Bush in the wings after Jeb Bush. I forget his name. Michael Bush, I think his name. A third Bush brother. Yeah, we're going to have another Bush president pretty soon. I can guarantee it. And then they say there's actually free elections in this country. That it's not rigged, right?
I'm voting none of the above next time. I'm voting none of the above.
Now, it's funny because we talk about this on the show a lot, Travis, about the paradigm shifting within the world of ufology and the paranormal and stuff, and how it's now more acceptable in society to believe in aliens, to believe in this subject. But here's the thing with the growing problems that the world has, and not only the economical problems, but the wars and everything of that nature. It's very tough for the average person to think about UFOs and aliens and really pay as close attention to this subject as you normally would want them to because of all the other stuff going on. Do you think a lot of that stuff that's going on is the wars and everything? Do you think some of that might be a form of a distraction to keep us away from these subjects? Because honestly, this is really, I think, the most important thing to discuss: the "Are we alone?" question. I mean, that is the number one question.
That's probably one of those popular techniques of manipulation of public opinion is distraction, and it's not always world events. Sometimes it's just popular culture, that
right.
People
Kardashians.
Yeah, and I should talk since I was on that show, but
yeah.
But
but it's true, though. I mean, it's not only the Kardashians, but there's distractions in a lot of things. But the war itself, I think some of the wars that are going on right now are manufactured wars, just to keep us, keep the war machine going, and that in itself is a distraction.
Manufactured wars.
Oh yeah, definitely. But especially the one after 9/11. I mean, my goodness. I mean, this could have been written by somebody in Hollywood. How well it was written up.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, Travis. Have you done any thought, or have you put any thought into writing a follow-up book soon to the Fire in the Sky book?
Yeah. There's a lot of things to reflect my more evolved understanding of what happened, and plus newer research that evidence that's coming out, and some ongoing follow-up research.
Oh, really? What kind of research? Can you tell us a little bit about some?
Well, for instance, the tree growth at the site.
Really, tell us about that.
Well, the trees nearest where the craft came down exhibited extremely rapid growth. Well, only recently was one of my organization team located this research about the effect of Chernobyl radiation on Scots pine tree species, that the radiation actually made those trees grow at 3 times the rate they had previously. So, that kind of supports the idea that may have been the source of the rapid growth.
Interesting.
But, some of this follow-up research on the site is pretty exciting because people who were skeptical about, the cause of this rapid growth were saying, oh, maybe there was more water available or something like that. But 2 things happened. One is when National Geographic was out there, on camera, we discovered a tree that had been logged the year before the incident. And here was a tree of about 200 years in age, in which the growth rings were fairly uniform for 200 years.
And then after?
It was demonstrating the fact, sort of a benchmark of concerning the growth conditions for trees right there on that ridgetop. And then on top of that, the other thing was, in this more recent expedition back there a month or so ago, it was discovered, see, when the tree rings were cored 15 years ago, there was great care taken to prevent killing the tree. So it was a core sample that just went from the surface of the tree to the center of the tree. But now that the forest fire has killed a lot of those trees, there's no harm in getting a full cross-section. And that was amazingly revealing. The thickened growth was on the side of the tree towards where the craft was. And, we took pictures of a tree north, east, west, south, on the 4 points of the compass from ground zero. And in each case, the thickened rings were towards where the craft was. And that was just an amazing validation of the idea that there was a source, a point source, for the cause of this rapid growth.
Have there been any really other major researchers that have looked into the location and the incident that really stand out in the crowd for you?
Well, not really. A lot of those samples were taken to Pinelandia Labs, but Dr. Levengood has passed away, and so that was, kind of hasn't been followed up on very thoroughly. I was amazed at how long after the phenomenon was discovered that there were no scientists eager to, look into it and see what was up.
No one really has expressed additional interest to it?
Well, recently,
that's shocking.
A member of my team went to the University of Arizona tree ring lab and was basically given the brush off. So, this is something mainstream science does not want to look at.
Interesting.
That doesn't shock me at all. The mainstream science is not interested in looking at this stuff. Mainstream science is controlled by institutions that put money behind what they're doing. So I'm pretty sure they're told not to look at this stuff and just back away from it.
Well, you would think, ostensibly the definition of science is an open-minded
yes
attitude towards inquiry, and it is as far from that as you can get.
Yep.
The idea of orthodoxy is anathema to science, but that's actually what we have as an orthodoxy.
Yeah, unfortunately, Travis, science has been bought and paid for a long time now. It's not a real, legit institution anymore. It's bought and paid for by bigger companies and corporations. It's not what it used to be 100 years ago.
Yeah, medical science, you name it. There's an economic motivator and controlling factor behind all of it.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true. Now, what do you think of people that say, for example, that a lot of this stuff might be propaganda from the government? They're actually putting false information of aliens or UFO contacts or abductions, like your own case. That is all brainwashing and manipulation by the government to fool us into believing that there is aliens coming down because they're trying to force some kind of mass hysteria with a possible fake alien invasion to spark more wars. I mean, what do you say to people that say stuff like that?
Well, where's the evidence? Where is this false flag invasion? It hasn't happened yet. Actually, you see evidence on both sides. The attempt to suppress,
right.
Project Blue Book and all that was, the stated intent was to show that it was nothing. And so you've got suppression on one hand, but on the other hand, it is a very useful cover for certain covert military type developments,
Yeah, but some of this technology that you described and so many other people described, it's still not something we have access to, I don't believe.
Yeah, but it still serves as cover because, the people, and especially our enemies, will wonder, well, is that really something that we have? They can never be sure.
Keep them always guessing.
Yeah, no, even I do believe that there is some truth to the government having stuff that is just much, much more advanced. Now, how much of that, is back engineered from alien crafts? That's the question that everybody really needs to be asking. But how much more advanced do you think the government is with these black budget projects and they're leading on, Travis? You think they're maybe like 100 years, 200 years?
Well,
more advanced?
When the stealth bomber was unveiled to the public, that was 30-year-old technology at that time.
Yeah.
So, what do we have that's...
yeah, but wait a minute. It was 30-year-old technology, but so many of us knew about it before they debuted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and more people were confused thinking they were actually alien UFOs flying around. There were reports of that in the before, a couple years before it was actually on the news. They're reported as UFO sightings.
Well, yeah, and some of these black triangular ones, I think, are ours.
Yeah, like Art Bell. The one Art Bell saw.
Whether it's back engineered or not,
Now, do you believe Roswell happened, Travis? I've always wanted to ask you that. Do you believe that the Roswell incident was a legit spacecraft that landed here and crashed?
Well, yes, and you know why? Because we've had 4 or 5 official government explanations. If it didn't happen, one would have been enough. When they got to come out with another and then another and another, and none of them hold water, that's kind of a perverse sort of endorsement from the government,
Either that or they're really bad at lying.
Well, that too.
I think a little of both.
Which makes me chuckle.
With this population, they don't have to be very good at it. If people don't want to believe, just throw anything out there for like the dismissal of my case. Oh, they just saw the planet Jupiter. It doesn't fit the description in any way. But people that want to glom onto some way to, put it out of their minds, and that's fine for them. The kid that comes on there and claims that the crew was chased through the woods by Air Force helicopters on maneuver. No way does it fit in the slightest. Nobody in close proximity to a helicopter would be able to mistake it for anything other than a helicopter. Say nothing of the fact that a helicopter cannot fly through the forest below the trees because the blades would hit the trees.
Yep.
Unless it's a really, really, really early prototype of a drone.
Well,
yeah. In the 70s, I don't think so, Alan. That's, yeah.
Well, you're saying 30 years. Do the math.
I don't think they had drone technology available like that.
We saw a clearly defined metallic disc.
Yeah.
If we could see the structure of it, there was nothing helicopter about it.
Oh, I believe you. I believe you. Just
helicopter, is a huge downrush of air that would be blowing pine needles and debris everywhere.
Travis, what always intrigued me about the book and, the actual details of what happened to you was the human-looking beings that you saw on there in the ship and how human they look to you. If you saw one of these beings walking down the streets, there'd be no difference between them and us, right?
Well, the average person wouldn't see much difference. I think I might recognize certain, characteristics, but yeah. But you know what? I assumed that they were human to begin with, but I think that it's entirely possible for there to be very similar species to humans in more than one place out there. It's not defying the odds at all. UFO skeptics are very fond of saying just the idea that they would have 2 arms and 2 legs and a head on top just defies the odds. They always imagine it has to be some, totally bizarre thing. You watch, mark my words, when we send a probe or in some other way determine for certain what life is like on other planets, we're not going to be astonished at how bizarre the forms are. We're going to be astonished at how similar they are.
By the way, I agree. And Travis, that noise you hear is 760. You're live on the air on Skywatchers Radio. We are going to take calls. You're live with Travis Walton. Do you want to ask a question?
Hi, this is Heavenly Angel. It's nice to talk to you, Mr. Walton.
Nice to talk to you.
I have a question for you. Yes, sir.
Go for it. Go for it, sweetie.
Okay. I wanted to know, do you have post-traumatic stress disorder from your abduction?
Well, they didn't call it back then, but I certainly, had some severe symptoms of things, And
is there anything
the Skywatch that we're going to be having there on the 5th, that's the anniversary of the incident, right on the spot, and I'm kind of nervous about that, even with my new interpretation of their intent.
Is there anything that triggers your post-traumatic stress disorder?
Well, I imagine being on the site on the anniversary will certainly trigger
that too.
That might do it. Yeah, that might do it. Have you actually gone back out there at all, Travis? I mean, since the incident in the last like 10, 15, 20 years?
As little as possible, but here a couple of months ago, we actually went back with metal detectors and Geiger counters and magnetic detection, and did some follow-up research.
I'm surprised that area hasn't become like a tourist attraction area where people just go there and talk about the incident.
Well, people ask me for the directions to the spot, and I, can't do that until the research is completed.
That's a good point. Has there been scientists out there besides you guys yourself? Has there been other scientists or anybody else doing any metallurgies or any testing for any radiation or anything like that?
Well, actually, a reporter for the local newspaper said that she was doing volunteer work on the fire watch towers. They build these towers so you can climb up there and survey and look for smoke during fire season. And she said that this government crew came by and they were doing mapping of magnetic readings on the ground, which is not the usual way that kind of research is done. Normally, they suspend an instrument below an aircraft and then crisscross over and map those magnetic lines out. But this crew was doing it on the ground.
How recent was this?
That was the very next fire season after the incident.
Oh, wow.
Huh. I know you could always get from the USGS topography maps. I'm wondering, does anybody actually have magnetic maps?
Well, yeah, but like I say, they normally make those magnetic maps from the air. But this crew was doing it from the ground, and I suspect that it was follow-up because it had come out in the media that magnetic readings had been done on the site by some UFO researchers, and they had found that there was some really dramatic changes in the level of magnetism and even a pole reversal in the direction that the craft had left.
Oh, wow.
And that's interesting.
Spread it out on the clearing and the whole map of that.
Wow, that in itself is interesting.
Yeah, actually, that's more than interesting. They actually, have a pole reversal.
Yeah. I mean, is that documented somewhere? That Travis? I mean, has that been documented?
Well, see, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization were compiling a file on this case, and I was told that it was over a foot thick.
Oh, wow.
And that was sort of slipped into the whereabouts unknown with the death of the founders.
Oh, that's a shame. I'd love to have read through
that.
Gee,
we've never heard of stuff disappearing for no.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Well, even the sheriff's file disappeared.
Really?
Yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, how does that file disappear?
Well,
what was the answer? What did they tell you?
Of it because the sheriff had some copies in his files at home, but the actual files that were in the sheriff's office, what I just heard recently was that the new sheriff coming in took all those files out and burned them, which you would think would be totally illegal. I mean, there would be leads that would be useful in solving crimes, years in the future. The whereabouts of certain, perpetrators and all that sort of thing. That would be absolute malpractice,
it's lunacy.
To destroy those kind of files, but that's the story.
Isn't that some type of a criminal offense, destroying that kind of evidence? Or do they not consider it evidence because they don't think it actually happened?
Well, it's not just my file, but all the files. That's what I was told.
Wow. All the files dealing with your case?
No, all the files, from the previous administration.
Oh, no kidding. Wow, yeah, so there was a lot of cases in there that, a lot of different files, documents that could have served different cases. There's got to be some law against that.
Yeah.
There's no way that could be legal.
Yeah, that was wrong.
Yeah, but I guess they're trying to destroy any trace evidence that might lead back to anything, maybe connecting with you. You think?
Well, there was some stuff that I think there's a cover-up involved. Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't shock me, a cover-up in ufology. It's funny because I see you on Facebook all the time. You're very active on there. You have a lot of people that chat you on Facebook and post stuff to you on Facebook. How different is it now with social media playing the big part that it is in our society for folks like you and people that have had the experiences you've had to get this stuff across to the everyday folks? I mean, how big of a role is social media playing for you?
Well, I think it's huge. I think it's probably the major factor for why this case, this movie is more popular than it's ever been. I recently mailed a book to Croatia. Imagine that. Some really far off places. Every little corner of the world is, the web, the internet has really opened up the world.
To level the playing field.
It really has. It's funny because they were always saying, well, the New World Order is trying to unite the world in one world government. Well, the internet's kind of united the world in a one world web.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
From the bottom up instead of from the top down.
No kidding, yeah. Travis, we have a caller on the line. Chris Brown joins us on Skywatchers Radio. Chris, welcome to the show, and why are you making so much noises back there?
I just was moving the chair. I'm sorry. Hey,
right,
how you doing tonight, Angel and Travis?
Hi.
And Alan.
Good.
And Alan, yeah, that was me. No one talks about me, I know.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Alan. I'm sorry. But,
no harm, no foul.
Anyway,
now, do you want to ask Travis here something?
Yeah, I was calling. A lot of people talk about when they get abducted and they prayed or they thought of that maybe praying or something, and it might just go away. Anytime during your encounter, I know that maybe it's a silly question, but were you sitting there praying and were the beings when they're above you, were you praying to get out of the whole situation? And because a lot of people think, well, alien abductions are demonistic or are a negative thing, and so I just was wanting to ask you about that, if that's something that
well, I really don't think that religious interpretations of this are necessary at all. And really, it's really just. It's what it implies is this has to be demonic because the universe is empty except for us.
Exactly.
And that beginning presumption, since there can't be anything but us, then it has to be demons, or since my religion doesn't specifically mention life on other worlds, then we have to explain it in terms of religion. And that's a slippery slope that can lead to some very dangerous kinds of thinking.
I understand, and so, but I just was kind of curious if when in your experience, if by praying were you?
Well, let me give you the example. Yes. My son was dating this girl, and her priest brought this guy in that gave a speech and called her aside. And told her that she should break up with him because his dad was consorting with demons, Well, this was a Catholic priest that was fostering this idea, and it wasn't too long after that the Vatican came out and specifically said there's absolutely nothing evil or wrong about believing in life on other worlds. So, even very old religions have, incorporated the understanding that it's absurd to maintain that we're alone in the universe.
No, not only that, they went as far as to say, Travis, that ETs are a part of God's plan.
Yeah. Well, what is it you don't understand about all-knowing and all-powerful?
Right.
When these people insist that the Bible and religion and God and that all that can only refer to Earth, this tiny, tiny speck amongst billions of stars, that's in our own galaxy alone, is just so narrow-minded that it's absurd. These are flat earthers.
There is a flat Earth society still around, Travis. Not even kidding.
Takes all
That
kinds,
exists.
don't it?
That exists, yeah, man. You know, it's funny because I had a conversation with somebody who's super religious a while back, and I've told this story before, and it's really an amusing story. We were having a conversation about aliens. You came up actually. You know, I told her about your case, and she knew about it. She had heard, seen the movie and stuff, and she's a very skeptical person. And this is somebody who is super religious, works for the government. Okay, and I asked her about God in general, because you know she's a very religious person. I asked her, well, what do you think God is? And she's like, well, he's a being that lives, you know, in heaven, and he controls everything. And this is literally her answer. And I told her, well, let me put it in a little simpler term. Is God on this earth? Well, no, he's not on this earth. Oh, okay, so by your mere definition, God is an extraterrestrial, because he's not off this earth. Travis, this blew her mind. Just the mere fact to think of it like that really just completely left her like a deer in headlights.
Welcome to Outside the Box.
Yeah,
well,
no kidding.
You know, people don't understand that just the word heaven, is a kind of a dual definition word. The heavens referred to the sky.
Right.
And all the little lights and things that you see out there. So that's what was originally meant. And, you know, people have come up with this kind of dual definition of heavens when originally that's what heaven was. Heaven was the heavens.
Mm-hmm. I think it'll be kind of funny if we end up finding out after we die that heaven is, you know, we conceive it as just outer space. And, you know, our energy goes back into the ether of outer space, and that's really what heaven is.
Yeah. Well, you know that song, Heaven is a Place on Earth? Well, heaven is a place off of Earth.
So true.
No kidding. Chris, you have any other questions for Travis?
No, I don't. And thank you very much.
I appreciate
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for calling in, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the great Chris Brown, everybody. But wouldn't that be funny, though, Travis, if that ended up being the case, that space is heaven, heaven is space, and there's nothing else after that? But we do continue on, and I do believe we continue on. Are you a believer in reincarnation, past life, any of that stuff? Are you a believer in that?
Well, I don't. You know, Friedrich Nietzsche said some words to the effect that belief is the desire to not know. What that really means is if you have to say you believe in something, then you're not speaking of something as a matter of fact. You know, I don't say that I believe in 2 + 2 is 4, you know. So, yeah, I entertain the concept of reincarnation. I do.
That makes two of us. Alan?
You don't want me to go into this conversation because I got a scientific explanation to reincarnation and heaven.
Oh, boy. Actually, I'd like to hear your interpretation of heaven. That'd be interesting in itself.
Well, you know that I do some ghost hunting for fun, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, this is my philosophy on when it comes to life after death and, you know, the universe and reincarnation. I use the example, does everybody here that's listening have a brain? The answer is usually yes.
Right.
Does it fire neurons to work? The answer is yes.
Right.
Do we all agree that is electrical energy? Yes.
Right.
Has science proven energy is neither created nor destroyed, it just changes form? Yes.
Right.
So when the body expires, usually one of two things happens. Either A, that energy that causes your brain to function, call it your soul, call it whatever you want, will either A, dissipate into the universe, become one with everything, you know, the mind of God, and somewhere down the line, which I'll get back to in a second, will partially recoalesce, and that's reincarnation. But I'm going to get to that in a second. The other thing that would happen when the body expires is A, for one reason or another, it'll stay in a localized area, and that's what we call a ghost or a haunt. Does that sound like it makes sense? Now there are different reasons why your energy would stay in a localized area. Sometimes it's because of its own will, but other times because of where it is. One thing science has proven when it comes to ghost hunting, certain types of rock like limestone, certain granites, and certain quartz crystals can act as a Faraday cage to entrap energy. So the reason older houses are more prone to being haunted is because they're made out of lath and plaster, and that's limestone, which is which would act as a Faraday cage. You know what I mean by a Faraday cage, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. It would act as a Faraday cage to keep that energy, that soul, trapped in a location. Does that sound scientifically, theoretically possible?
Yeah, well,
Makes
the house
sense.
I grew up in was a lath and plaster.
Right, but it's funny. Castles in the medieval times were haunted, but the wooden houses around it never got haunted. Most of the houses were limestone, granite. There are certain things that act as a shield, the same way lead for X-rays. It traps it in. So, that's my theory on ghosts. Now, when it comes to dissipating and reincarnation, I'm going to use money as an example. And I know it sounds weird, but wait till I get to it.
Well,
Your
hold on.
soul-
We're getting callers, so just hold on that thought real quick.
No one wants to
415.
listen to me.
You're on the air with Travis Walton. Thank you for calling in and stopping Alan from his long story here. You're on the air. You want to ask Travis any questions?
Yes, I do. I usually don't call in this late, but I had met Travis briefly. Travis, I don't think you remember my name, but it was a Whole Life Expo in San Francisco back about 15 years ago. I was in charge of the speaker's room, and I got to speak with you a few moments. I remember we had a birthday that was exactly a month apart. I don't know if you remember me. I had curly hair and a mustache. Your crew chief, who was touring with you at the time, said, "Oh, you kind of look like Travis." Do you remember any of that?
Well, actually, I don't, but I do know that the Whole Life Expos seemed better back then.
Yeah, I think so. But anyhow, the reason at the time I had asked you, I don't want you to get upset. I couldn't reach you on an earlier program this week, but I won't say what we talked about there. But one thing that I always wanted to ask you, because you're a Virgo, I know that, and I'm born a month after you, and you seem to notice details, and the details about these tall blondes. And I did have a girlfriend that was Norwegian, and I always wanted to ask you, did you notice, like you just said earlier, that you noticed a difference in, that you could tell the difference? So you don't think that these were humans from Earth that were maybe part of some secret unit, right?
Well, that's a possibility, but I also have quite a bit of development and a theory about why there would definitely be similar people elsewhere. They don't have to have seeded us here or be, us from the past to the future. Similar environments on Earth among animals generate similar forms.
Right.
They can be completely unrelated, but genetically, but then take on a very similar form. The American pronghorn is not even a true antelope, but the African antelope is very similar because of the similarity of the environment. There was actually an American cheetah that would pursue the American pronghorn across the plains, and so the conditions necessary for survival shape their form, and
I just
on that, the kind of conditions that are necessary to create machines that can help you cross the vast distances is going to involve, certain forms. It just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I think that that's the case, and I think I always wanted to ask you because some people who have said that these blonde-type aliens that they have met have said, "Oh, we're your brothers," but this man and woman that you met, that you drew paintings of, didn't ever communicate even telepathically with you. They were silent, correct?
Yeah, but, it's my theory now that, any sort of psychic communication might have been curtailed by that energy hitting me in the head. Because the EEG that I had immediately after I was returned showed an anomalous pattern that kind of supports the idea that maybe that electrical disruption interfered with that, at least temporarily.
Yeah, and I had wondered because I don't want to, again, freak you out, but a lot of people report various types of aliens, but the other aliens who, and I'm so happy to hear you're going to remake the movie, because you told me at the time it was just a bunch of Hollywood bunk, that they didn't penetrate you with needles and all the BS in that particular movie. I'm glad to hear you're doing it again, but the type of aliens that you had, I never was clear. The ones that kind of floated out of the room, they were not grays, right? They were an unusual looking group, weren't they?
Well, and again, similar forms. I think a lot of what people are describing as grays, and we didn't have that terminology back in 1975, but actually represents a number of species. And, it just so happens because they come from a similar environment, they're going to have a similar form. The large eyes, obviously every animal on Earth that has oversized eyes like that lives in a very low light environment. Mm-hmm. And so that entails most likely a thick atmosphere or a very high in water vapor to block a lot of the incoming light. And so, it's not surprising that you would have a number of planets, that would have the same kinds of conditions.
And I think that I'm so happy to hear that you've survived all these years and continue to thrive. You're very believable. I had one more question, if I might, that from what I understand, in the movie was more about James Garner as the sheriff, right? And I understand that in real life, the sheriff suspected that your buddies might have offed you or had an accident. But you were actually missing for 5 days, and what I wanted to ask you, I think it was 5 days, that the time that transpired, and you think that they fixed you, you said that it was probably an accident that they took you, it wasn't an abduction. During those 5 days, did you feel like it was 5 days, or did you just feel it was a couple hours between the time you woke up in the the room there in the craft and the time that you were left face down on the road outside of your hometown? What did time seem like to you?
Well, I think time was, I don't think there was a time dilation effect. The theory that, when you travel near the speed of light, that time slows down. Because, the length of my beard when I was returned would be consistent with 5 days. And I think that although I was probably in a coma or dead or something for part of that time, that there is other memories that I just can't access.
Yeah. I had mentioned that when I had met you. I said about getting regressed, and I've heard you since. You don't need to go into it, that you didn't feel comfortable, and that's fine. But I want you to know that you're a hero. Whenever I bring up this subject, I work with teenagers, and they're very interested. They have a lot more open mind. I'm an old guy, but when I bring up this subject and I get young people that are interested, I always mention your name. I tell them to look up the movie, so I hope the new movie will be even more informative, because they're open to this, and I think you're one of the pioneers here that as time passes, people, when we have full disclosure, which I'm trying to support that effort in the United States, that you'll be one of the people that'll be one of our heroes.
Well, thank you. But
no, I know you're humble, but you are.
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not a Virgo. I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, I thought you said it was a September birthday when I talked with you.
No, February.
It was the 16th, I remember, and I'm the 16th of October, so I thought it was right near me.
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm early February.
Got that wrong.
Aquarian, but
oh, okay. Well, we're both air signs, so it's a good place to be. Air signs deal with outer space.
It's funny though. You touch on something, caller, that it's very accurate. when you talk about telling people about this case and how interested they get in immediately on the case. A perfect example of that is my father, who does not speak a word of English, and he's the person who actually told me about the Travis Walton case when I was a kid. He's the one that took me to see the movie because he was so excited to see this movie and to see what had happened visually after knowing the story for so many years. And this is a person again who doesn't speak the language. And he was so interested, and there's a lot of folks in the Latin community and around the world that are interested in your case, Travis. Your story really did open a lot of minds to this subject.
And I think that's important. For a long time I was just so regretful that this ever happened, but I gradually came to realize that along with this tremendous burden came a great responsibility. And I do hope to, open up some minds and get people ready for our inevitable future is an open acknowledgement of that we're not alone, that there are other civilizations, and they're going to, be quite a bit of variety in their appearance. And
And here's the thing, though, going back to the appearance real quick, another supporting scientific theory to, the assessment that they would look a lot like us or they would be humanoid would be panspermia. If that's a theory that actually holds any water and it turns out to be true, well, if all life is seeded from the same sources and it's all kind of the same building blocks, there's a very good chance that it's going to develop very similar if it lands on planets like ours.
Yeah, well, logically, you would have to know that it's at least partly true. Because, like Michio Kaku was saying, people keep imagining these other civilizations as being maybe 100 or 200 years ahead of us, but, based on the age of these star systems, they could be hundreds of thousands or millions of years ahead of us.
Yeah.
And if they've been spacefaring for, millennia, then naturally they would have branched out and be living on other planets, so they could actually
that's what
from themselves.
That's what I alluded to, is that a lot of other people who have seen these humanoid blonde-looking aliens have said, they've said to them, well, we are your brothers. And the panspermia thing, one thing I was shocked about recently, and apparently it's true, is that the space station, which is orbiting, not way out in outer space, but certainly out of our oxygen and nitrogen atmosphere, has plankton or something growing, lichens growing on it. And that was shocking. And I have a biology teacher friend, he goes, what? And I said, yeah. So if it's surviving out in space, it shows that maybe those cosmic rays aren't as deadly as they're telling us. Maybe,
there's certain beings that are like extremophiles that live in extreme conditions. And that's what planktons are. And these are, creatures that can live in that. It doesn't mean that every creature, but certainly there could be creatures that live even in space itself, which would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? Creatures that actually can live in space without a suit or anything like that.
Well, figure if they survive on solar energy, and solar wind would push them to wherever they want to go.
And if that's
there was an old Star Trek episode.
Even if that's the only form that's being seeded, they could, become more complex over time, and in a sense, they were seeded there from space, panspermia.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I got the birthday wrong, but I appreciate being able to talk to you 15 years later, and your crew foreman, I forget his name, Mike, said, you guys kind of look alike, and I still rock the mustache and still have some curly hair left, so I don't think I get mistaken for you, but I feel a kinship with you.
Okay, I'll shave the mustache then.
No, don't insult me. Now I'm a nice person.
No, you said you don't have it anymore. Actually,
no, I do. I have never.
Oh, he says he rocks that mustache. He's still rocking it.
Oh, I got that wrong. Anyway.
No, I rock it. I rock ROCK. No, I do, and I think we both have a little Scottish heritage in us, don't we? Don't you have a bit of Scotch?
Yeah, certainly UK, Irish and Welsh, anyway.
Yeah, and you're familiar with a lot of people who say that various alien species seem to be drawn to either Native Americans or people of Celtic ancestry for some reason.
I'm just wondering if they're a precursor to the humanity or the Homo sapien that we are today. I'm just wondering if the aliens, or who we perceive as aliens, are, especially with all the prehistory that we don't know about from more than 5,000 years ago. I'm wondering if they were here first, they left this planet.
Well, Alan, I mean, I talked about this.
Back.
I talked about this before. The planet's been here for 4.5 billion years that we think. In that time, evolution has probably happened several times with intelligent evolution, intelligent life, maybe very similar to Earth beings or human beings. And who's not to say that some of these intelligent beings left the planet to explore space, came back, and wait a second, now there's a bunch of monkeys running around controlling the planet. What to do?
It's like this is not the way we left the planet. Damn it! What?
Right.
That's one of the Atlantis theories.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. No, I've heard that theory that they left the planet because of some catastrophe, and they came back, and whoops, monkeys running around. Which that would make a lot of sense to me because space is a very vast distance, and if you have evolution going on constantly on planets with life like ours, beings would become space-bearing beings, and they would travel space. I mean, we're doing it now. We're literally on the cusp of traveling outside of our solar system within the next 50 years, 100 years maybe, with human beings. I mean, this is a possibility.
It's inevitable we will gain that ability, and it's inevitable we're not going to lose interest in that sort of exploration because that's the way we are now.
I just hope we don't blow ourselves up.
Yeah, exactly, and that was the point I was going to bring up, whether a previous civilization left to do some exploring, which is natural to any species, because you're going to grow, you're not going to stay static, that maybe whether a meteorite hit us, killed not just the dinosaurs, and that's how the monkeys ended up taking over. They'd come back and go, wow, man, the place was destroyed, let's reseed it,
Oh, there's even a theory that not only the dinosaurs, but there were intelligent reptilian or reptiles running around, and they came back, and those are the reptiles or the reptilians people are seeing.
Yeah, I
today.
mean, when you see all this, when you're as old as I am, and you've seen all the science fiction develop since the 60s, I mean, things we see on Star Trek. I met a Russian right after the wall came down at one of those whole life expos that spoke for 2.5, 3 hours and was showing, Nazi UFOs. That's a whole other subject. But but then you look at Star Trek and you look at the transporter, which we already have the technology. Guys in a lab a couple of years ago announced it, and then it went away. They said they, were able to transport a molecule. And then you go ahead to things like holodecks. And then you go ahead to the television show that used to be called V, which was about a bunch of intelligent reptilians. And you figure, who thinks this stuff up? I used to think, what great writers. And now I'm thinking they're just copying all the stuff that really happened and putting it out in the media to try to maybe get people used to the fact that in a few years...
Conditioning, my friend.
Yeah.
Conditioning.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're tapping into the universal unconscious.
Well, it sounds like
Possible,
Travis's group were kind of an organic, because he said the insides of the ship were kind of smooth and kind of like arteries almost, from what I understand.
No. That was the fire in the sky interpretation. Actually, it was very mechanical and very uncluttered.
Uncluttered. But when you went to the one room, when you were walking around trying to get out, you said you sat and there was a chair in the middle of a room, and it looked like a planetarium, and the stars were spinning. Do you think that might have been the piloting room there, the bridge?
Well, either some kind of a map room or a pilot room, or maybe both.
But that guy that came to you, and they had helmets on, and you said, "Oh, were you some kind of a cop or rescuing me?" And the guy didn't say a word to you. Did he put hands on you?
Well, yeah, he wasn't made out of ether,
But I mean, he grabbed you. My question is, did he grab you?
Well, it was two of them, right, Travis? A couple of them grabbed you, one on each side, and kind of walked you along. But they weren't forceful, right?
He did take me to where there were other humans like him. And
right.
They definitely had a very strong, firm grip holding me down. I was fighting to get off the table, and they overpowered me, and so.
But he never tried to talk to you. He didn't make eye contact with you, because he had blue eyes, right? And did he make eye contact?
Eye contact, but it wasn't, people, I got an email today where somebody was assuming that they couldn't talk. Well, I never said they couldn't talk. I just said they couldn't. And, that could have been just because I was out of my mind with fear and babbling like a maniac, and it was really, it wouldn't achieve anything to say anything.
But you don't think they were android-like, or some kind of mechanical being, huh?
Well, my response to that is, if you really could create a being that could function in the place of a being, if it's sufficient technology, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. It's not going to move jerky or mechanical. That wouldn't remotely function in the place of a human.
Right.
Oh no.
And if it was a human from Earth, them not talking actually makes perfect sense. They don't want to give away any accents.
Yeah.
Anything they. Yeah. If you hear like a New Yorker accent from one of these guys,
or Norwegian.
Yeah, or Norwegian, or a Bostonian accent, like, hey, get over here. You hear something like that, immediately you're going to be like, okay, what's going on? I'm getting punked. So,
what about the patch on the arm? Were you able to focus now in retrospect? You said they had some kind of there was no arm patch, or I thought in one of your paintings it showed something like that.
No, that was somebody else's painting.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm glad to get all the facts directly from you, and I will definitely get everybody to see your new movie.
Well,
and I hope
that's what we need is a new movie to kind of straighten this out. Because a lot of people, mix up the real story with the Hollywood version.
Caller, thank you so much for.
I'm the same age as you, and it's been a few years since I talked to you, so I'm glad you set me straight, so I'm not giving misinformation here.
There you go. Okay. We do got to let you go, though. We're almost out of time, caller.
Thank you for all the time, and thank you, Travis. Carry on, man. Be vigilant.
All right. Good talking to you again.
Good talking to you. Bye.
Nice guy. Travis, we're almost out of time here. I want to give you a couple minutes here to talk about the conference again. Tell people how they can get to the conference, where they can buy tickets to this thing. Promote it, man.
Yeah, the website, www.skyfiresummit.com, is all set up to where, with either credit card or PayPal, you can just order tickets right there online. But it is really going to be something. This is going to be really unique. There's the energy that's coming with this event is just really extraordinary. And I've had 3 different possibilities. I don't want to advertise who these people are yet, but nationally recognized names from the music industry that might be attending.
Can you tell us a song?
No, that would be a dead giveaway. Come on, Alan.
That would give it away.
Yeah, it's a dead giveaway.
Hum a few bars? No.
Yeah. That's like one of the aliens having a Bostonian accent and actually speaking to Travis.
Yeah.
Hey, sit down over here. And that's not going to work out. Travis, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was great talking to you again.
Having you on here is just a blast. We're going to heavily promote this thing. It's a shame that I didn't find out about the event until late, and I'm not going to be able to make it out this year. But next year, I'll definitely be out there, and I'll definitely see you in the Open Minds conference in February. I think that's when they're going to have it, February or March.
February.
February, yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to that one, so we'll meet up over there. And I'm just dying to meet you, man. You're one of my heroes. I've said it before many times. You're one of the main reasons why I do what I do today. And it's always a pleasure to have you on the show and talk to you, sir.
Well, nice being with you. And we'll do it again sometime.
Looking forward to it.
Guys, we're all out of time here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Keith Rowland over there is giving me the signal that we got to wrap it up. So for Travis Walton, our very esteemed guest here, and for Alan, my very esteemed co-host, and for all our callers tonight, thank you for calling in and partaking on the show. This is Dark Matter Radio Network, and we'll be back next week with Michael Heiser. That's going to be an amazing show also, so please tune in for that. Stick around for more great programming right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network, everybody. Till then, keep your eyes on the skies, everybody. All right, everybody, we are back on Skywatchers Radio live on the Dark Matter Radio Network and, of course, PSN Radio with our guest this evening, none other than Mr. Travis Walton himself. Travis, thank you so much for being here tonight and spending some time with us on the show. Thank you, sir.
All right.
It's always fun to have you on and talk to you. And it's been a while since I've actually gotten to speak to you. You know, how's your life treating you in the last couple of years, Travis? You've been busy.
Oh yeah, been busy. It's just it keeps getting busier all the time. It's kind of strange, you know.
You figured, you know, stuff would slow down after a certain period of time, but you seem to get more and more busy as the years get by, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, even the movie it plays more often on various cable channels than it did before.
That's amazing, isn't it? It is kind of having like a resurgence in popularity. I've noticed a lot of people have been talking about it more and stuff. Like we were saying earlier in the show, I don't know if you caught the earlier part of the show, but it was a good movie. You know, minus the flaws that that they changed from the book. It is a very entertaining movie, and it is kind of a good introduction for people to get to know your story.
Yeah, it did kind of open up people's willingness to look at the facts, and you know. It does capture the basic, emotion the way I interpreted it at the time. But, you know, over the years, I've come to reanalyze all these events and look at it a lot differently than I used to.
It's amazing, how time would change your views on certain things, especially like the incident itself. Because I'm pretty sure, when we spoke last time, you made a point to say that you would never want this to happen to you again. But recently, you've kind of come around, and
It's on TV and on the internet. Do you think that people would be more? I don't want to use the word relaxed, but more blasé about it. It's like, okay, I'm on a ship. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Just don't. Probe me and just drop me off where you found me.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of people think they would remain calm, but that feeling of suffocation is something that you're not, no matter how mentally prepared you think you are, it's something that you're not going to overcome. And I give the example of waterboarding, that, it is so effective as an interrogation tool,
Yep.
even though, the enemy is totally familiar with the technique, and they even train for it. Heck, our people train for it, knowing that it's not going to kill them, but it still works because that feeling of suffocation is just operates on an instinctive level.
All right, that's a fair answer.
Yeah. Now, there's a question that somebody wanted to ask you, and they begged me to ask you this question. They wanted to know if you ever have given any thought to the possibility that maybe the aliens or the people, the beings that took you to the Dulce underground base, which was not that far away from where the incident happened. Did that ever cross your mind at all?
Well, I haven't, connected it specifically with Dulce, but I did speculate that it could have been underground or underwater somewhere, rather than being off on some distant celestial body or even some bigger ship somewhere. It could have been underground, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. They show in the movie scenes where D.B. Sweeney was weightless. Did you actually experience that portion?
No, that was
so they stretched it a little. Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Just a little bit of fiction.
Matter of fact, the feeling of weakness might not have been just because of the
not weakness,
weightlessness. It might have been heavier. Who can understand the evidence and the scientific principles that support the reality of this is happening.
And you got some great speakers to this thing. It's committed already. Kathleen Martin's going to be there. Linda Moulton Howe's going to be there. The great Stanton Friedman is going to be there. It's a great lineup. Richard Dolan is going to be there also. Chris O'Brien. I mean, a huge amount of people that are very famous.
Yeah, and I've got 3 Native American speakers, and that's important because we're surrounded by various reservations here: the Apache, the Navajo, the Hopi, the Zuni, the Pueblos. It's there. I spoke in Gallup here a couple of years ago, and I had almost 1,000 people in the audience, almost all Native American, and it was really fascinating to learn about things that are going on in the farther reaches of the reservation that normally don't make it out to.
Did any of them have a similar experience to you?
Oh well, there's all kinds of sightings and involvement, and this one guy was telling me about how his grandmother had a rug that was woven, and it was depicting a scene in which a meeting with these beings. And wouldn't that be something to...
Tell me there's a photo of that rug somewhere.
I would love to see it.
I'm pretty sure that'll end up on openminds.tv.
Well, on the 25th, they're having a UFO film festival in Gallup again, and I'm going to go over there. And if I run into that guy again, I'm going to... I know I'll probably meet with a stone wall, but I'm going to try.
Now, you're going to be on... there's going to be an Open Minds event in February. You're going to be there also, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. And, I got a lot of different things coming up. The Contact in the Desert thing is... I've been invited back there, and gravity rather than weightlessness.
Right. Well, I mean, if they're so advanced that they can come here from another galaxy or wherever, I mean, I'm pretty sure they figured out how to have, the whole, dynamics of gravity on the ship, where, I mean, they would have figured that out a long time ago, anti-gravity and all that stuff. So, I mean, you probably felt their atmosphere inside the ship, and it was just too much for you to breathe in, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
Yeah. Now, were there any reports, Travis? I've always wanted to ask you this. That you were aware of. Were there any reports in Snowflake or in that area pre to your abduction? That people had sightings. Was there like a rush of people coming forward with sightings, or was there a lot of talk or buzz about sightings in the area?
Well, there were some cattle mutilations in the media, in the local paper. In the months prior to it, and that kind of stimulated a little conversation at work. But other than that, getting access to the sheriff's file on the case, they received quite a few reports from hunters and campers who were in the area at the time and described seeing craft just like we saw. So, it could have been the very same craft.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, tell us a little bit about the Skyfire Summit event coming up, which, by the way, it's right next month. We're only a few days from this thing. It starts on November 7th, runs through the 9th, correct?
Yeah, and we've got a lot of the top speakers in the field. What I wanted to do with this, after somebody finally talked me into doing it, was to have something that really speaks to the local and regional communities, that is kind of a foundation course, a ufology 101. And so, the speakers that I chose and the topics I asked them to speak on is towards that end, that people...
You want closure. You want to maybe know some answers, I heard.
Yeah, and, I'm thinking that, just analyzing all the different circumstances, things that point in the direction of what their idea, that, of course, the thing that, was heavy on my mind for, so many years was why? What was the purpose here? And, a lot of things just weren't fitting as far as it being any kind of a situation that was totally indifferent to my welfare. I've come to look at it as possibly much more benevolently motivated than I ever thought before.
Yeah, benevolent, but hang on. Are you saying it was benevolent but yet still traumatizing?
Oh yeah, because when I regained consciousness, I was in such pain, and the claustrophobia in such a cramped space was what amplified that was the feeling of suffocation. I just couldn't seem to get enough oxygen. Now, whether that was due to some kind of injury to my lungs, that because of the energy beam that had hit me, or whether the atmosphere in there wasn't correct for humans, whatever the circumstance, the feeling of suffocation will cause a feeling of panic that you just can't overcome.
It's true. Yeah.
Devastating. Is what I would call it.
Well, and also you got to put yourself in the position that Travis was in. I mean, when you wake up and you're in a strange place, you see these strange beings coming at you. I mean, not for nothing. It's not nothing to be ashamed of. But I mean, any human being would go into like a panic attack mode, and when they see something like that, it's not your average everyday
the question
thing.
I don't know. Nowadays, with all the information and all the stuff that